What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome back to Dapp Central. My name is Fareed. Today, I want to break down some Cardano news pieces and just some highlights going on in the ecosystem. The very first thing I want to jump into is going to be a recent tweet that caught my eye scrolling through Twitter, which was made by an SPO breaking down some of the things that Cardano is not. Now, that sounds a little bit different than normal, but I want to jump into that here and touch on some key things that stick out when it comes to Cardano. The second piece of news I want to jump into is going to be surrounding World Mobile, who has been striking partnership after partnership over the course of the past few weeks and months. And they've recently also branched out into the BNB and Ethereum networks, as well as the Conflux network in the last 24 hours. Now, the partnership that I want to touch on for today's video is going to be surrounding World Mobile and the Dega platform, which is going to be an infrastructure platform building not only within the blockchain space, but they're going to have their own L1. So after that, we're going to jump into some news surrounding Butane, which is going to be a new synthetics platform or protocol similar to Indigo launching on Cardano, and the fact that they've now released their tokenomics. And then after that, I want to jump into some news surrounding Dex Hunter, which is going to be a DEX aggregator, as well as a platform for alerts and NFT sniping, all taking place here on the Cardano network. As always, if it's your first time stopping by the channel, my goal is to provide you guys in the community with the latest news, updates, and tutorials for the top builders on the Cardano network. If you'd like to support me on my mission to do that, I would appreciate you if you would consider delegating with the official Dapp Central stake pool, which is stake pool ticker DAPP. As always, thank you very much for your support, not only with the stake pool, but on the YouTube channel as well. Jumping into the first topic for today's video, I want to highlight this tweet here that was made by Stake with Pride. So this particular SPO states Cardano has no, and they list a lot of different things here that I want to touch on. So number one is going to be reboots. Number two, slashing. Number three, downtime. Number four, DAO hacks, followed by inflation bugs, ledger reversals, forks, narrative changes, value overflow incidents or bugs, and then very lastly, a low Nakamoto coefficient. Now, we're going to kind of jump back up there to the top, and I want to kind of elaborate a little bit on some of these that really kind of caught my eye. So number one, Cardano has no reboots. Again, this is a hard fact. You can't complain or you can't go against this. You know, it's black and white. And that's what I really love about this particular tweet. Now, one thing to note is that Cardano has been running without a single reboot for over 5+ years. When you look at other networks, for example, like Solana, they've had multiple reboots and they've been down multiple times. And that is, again, something that is not up for debate. Those are just the facts. So number one there, really touching on the basics in the resiliency of the Cardano network, given the fact that we've never had a single reboot taking place on Cardano. Number two, Cardano has no slashing. Now, if you're not familiar with slashing, this is going to be a penalty that occurs whenever there's a bad actor when it comes to delegation, whether that's the delegator delegating to an SPO or the actual SPO themselves. Now, typically on networks, for example, like Ethereum, where they do now have proof of stake and they do enforce slashing, when you have a bad actor who is holding some other people's assets, the people that are delegating to that particular SPO or pool operator or node operator could potentially have their funds taken away. Again, if the node operator is acting in a bad way or in a malicious way, right? So these are things to keep in mind. Again, no slashing taking place on Cardano. You can stake whenever you want to. You can remove your stake whenever you want to. There's no lockup period, and there's no minimum amount that you can actually stake to a stake pool, right? So if you want to stake one single ADA, you can go ahead and do that. On Ethereum, I believe it's somewhere around 32 ETH that you have to have in order to become a validator or a node operator, whereas on Cardano, that is not the case by any stretch of the imagination. So that is number two, no slashing taking place on Cardano. Number three, no downtime on Cardano. Now, this kind of ties back into number one there with the no reboots again. The network has been running strong without any downtime or any issues for over 5+ years. We did have a minor scare where we saw some of the nodes kind of desynchronize from the network around January 23rd of this year. And I think that impacted around 40 to 50% of the nodes, but the other 50% were still active and were still running as expected. So that's the closest that we've ever gotten to the network going down, or the closest that we ever got towards needing a reboot. And again, that was still a far stretch, right? That was just one of the blips that we've had here within the Cardano network. And I don't think that that is going to be something that we see over the course of the next few years. IOG immediately released a patch to fix the bug that actually caused for some of these nodes to become desynchronized. And since then, we have yet to see the issue occur again. Now, number 4, zero DAO hacks. We just had an exploit that took place on Curve Finance, which was one of the biggest, or is one of the biggest because it's still running, platforms when it comes to lending and borrowing on Ethereum. We saw an exploit basically, which was a reentrancy attack, which basically is when somebody makes a transaction and before that particular transaction is settled, they make another transaction right away. So something like this can happen within crypto. Obviously, we are still in a relatively young environment, but we did see something like that take place on Curve Finance. And I believe there was upwards of like a few, or maybe around 40 to 50 million. I'll have to double check there in terms of the exploit, which was taken advantage of. Now, comparing this to Cardano, right, we have not had a single DAO hack on the network. Again, really kind of touching and showing off some of the security benefits of being on a platform like Cardano, which does in fact use Plutus and Haskell for development, right? Which a lot of people give it a lot of a hard time for, given the fact that it's not easy to develop on. However, it does show its strengths when it comes to things like this, especially with respect to security. Now, for full transparency, I do have to be honest, we did have a minor issue, which was very close to Cardano, but it didn't actually take place on Cardano. Now, that was the Nomad Bridge hack. Now, the Nomad Bridge, I believe, was incorporated on the Melcometa sidechain, which is a sidechain connected to Cardano, which would basically allow for EVM compatible dApps to launch on the Melcometa sidechain and therefore interact with portions of the Cardano community. Now, as a part of that hack, we saw platforms on Cardano, including Iagon, as well as the Wing Riders DEX, which held some stable coins on the Nomad Bridge, which were indirectly impacted. But again, keep in mind that that particular exploit didn't actually take place on the Cardano network. It took place on the Melcometa sidechain. So again, for full transparency, I did want to highlight that there, that we haven't had a single hack on Cardano. However, we did have something take place on an L2 or a sidechain connected to the network. Number 3, no inflation bugs. Pretty simple here. The fixed supply of Cardano, I believe, is going to be a total of 45 billion tokens. Very similar thing that we have there with Bitcoin with a fixed supply. And right now, I believe we have over 80% of the total Cardano in circulation, with around 62% of that currently being staked or delegated to stake pool operators. Therefore, not only earning a passive income, but also securing the Cardano network. Number let's see there. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got number 7, which is going to be no ledger reversals. So that one, again, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All the transactions made on the network are not reversible. And this has, I think, some benefits, but I think that we could potentially see a future, or I'd like to see a future, where we could have some sort of protocol in place to undo certain types of transactions. So hear me out there. For example, if you're shopping on a platform like Amazon, and you make a purchase, right, for something that you wholeheartedly want to purchase initially, and then maybe you change your mind, right, without necessarily having used the product or having taken advantage of the product, you are able to go through a formal process where you can actually return those things or the asset that you purchased back over to Amazon in order to get a full refund or partial refund, depending on the quality that the actual item is returned back over into. Now, right now in crypto, all sales are final. I think everybody is more than aware of that. If you purchase something, there's no way to undo that. And if you send funds to a wrong address or an incorrect address, there's also also no way to undo that. Now, what I would love to see again is going to be some sort of protocol that allows for people who make certain purchases with certain vendors the ability to potentially undo those under certain circumstances where both parties have a mutual agreement that they want that reversal to actually take place. Again, it's not something that has to be forced on the entire crypto population, but I do think that this would bring some specific benefits, to the broader crypto community if they were to have something like this moving forward. So that is going to do it there for no reversals. And then right after that, we have no forks taking place on Cardano. Now, Cardano does have a hard fork combinator, which simplifies forks and updates moving forward in the network. And I think what this is touching on is the fact that on platforms like Bitcoin, we've seen so many different forks, therefore new versions being adopted, and therefore also splitting the community up in different ways. So I do think that forks upon forks are probably not the best way to move forward. You always want to make sure to have one core protocol that everybody agrees to. And if there's any sort of conflict between two versions, of a protocol, there needs to be some sort of consensus before anybody moves forward. If I jump over into this next tab here, we can take a look and we can see some of the forks that have happened with Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is arguably the biggest network right now and one of the earliest that was ever adopted. And since then, we've seen the forks, including Bitcoin Cash, which took place in 2017. We've seen Bitcoin SV, which took place in November of 2018. eCash, which was a fork of Bitcoin, take place in November of 2020, as well as Bitcoin Gold, which was a fork in October of 2017. Again, I think that this not only splits up the community, but it also kind of loses a piece of the initial vision of a fully autonomous network moving forward. Again, I would hate to see Cardano being split into, Cardano Lite or Cardano whatever. So I'm definitely of the mind and of the ethos that we should always have a single chain. And if there's ever any consensus or consensus issues, that we have to agree on those before moving forward and actually putting out whatever the fork or the update is. So that is going to do it there for that particular one. Next, we have narrative changes, value overflow incidents or bugs. And then the very last piece there's going to be surrounding a low Nakamoto centralization feature or a low Nakamoto coefficient. I'm going to jump over here, but for those of you who aren't aware of what a Nakamoto coefficient is, this basically helps to measure the minimum number of validators or nodes that would be needed in order to agree to prevent a blockchain from operating correctly. Now, in respect to ADA, or in the context of Cardano, this refers to the minimum number of SPOs or stake pool operators required to capture more than 50% of the active network stake. So if we're looking here at some of the insights here, we have a Nakamoto coefficient of anywhere between 19 to sometimes 20 and 21. And we also have a minimum attack vector, which again is very similar to the Nakamoto coefficient, ranging anywhere between 24 and at our all-time high around 28. Now keep in mind that this is just for the last few epochs, and we probably have ranged around this value for the past year or two. If I jump over into the next tab, we've got the minimum attack vector and the Nakamoto coefficient for other chains for comparison, where we have Solana with a value of 19, Terra with a value of 8, Near with a value of 7, Avalanche with a value of 27, Cosmos with a value of 6, and then Polkadot with a value of 16. So Cardano providing a higher Nakamoto coefficient with respect to centralization or decentralization, on the network, and how many nodes would have to be taken over in order to take over the majority of the network. So showing some relative strength there when it comes to that. Now that was quite a bit of news, or quite a bit of talking there. Again, I wanted to just quickly shout out Pride Pool and that really informative post touching on some of the key facts when it comes to Cardano, and indisputable at that. I think that is what really kind of drew me to that particular tweet, was the fact that there was no and ifs or buts about it. Cardano has not had any reboots. You can't argue that. No slashing. You can't argue that. No downtime, no hacks, etc. So that is going to be it there for that very first portion of today's video, touching on that particular tweet. Again, I just could not pass that one up. A lot of really good information there. The next piece of news I want to jump into is going to be surrounding World Mobile. Now, World Mobile is going to be partnering up with Dega, and I want to break down exactly what that entails. Now, World Mobile, for those of you who aren't aware, is a platform building a decentralized network to support infrastructure relating to internet and mobile telecommunication. And they state here, partnership announcement. We are more than delighted to announce that we've partnered with Dega.org. Our partnership with Dega aims to foster collaborating within our respective ecosystems while exploring the integration of state-of-the-art technology. So we're going to jump over into the Dega Twitter, and then we're going to jump over into their official website to talk about exactly what this means. So this was the official announcement here, breaking down the partnership between Dega and World Mobile. And they state here in their thread, World Mobile's partnership revolves around a collaborative effort to nurture their ecosystems while exploring cutting-edge technology integration. So two things, or one thing that I've gotten so far from both of those tweets there, is that they look like they're trying to integrate whatever Dega is going to be building into the World Mobile ecosystem. Jumping over into the next tab here, for those of you who are not aware or familiar with Dega, they're going to provide scalable infrastructure and fast transactions for Web3 gaming and the metaverse. Now, one thing that caught my eye there was those two categories, Web3 gaming and the metaverse, and the fact that World Mobile is neither one of those. And so this kind of sparked my interest and curiosity as to whether or not they might be branching out and dealing with more projects than just gaming and Web3 metaverses. Now, if I scroll down, again, Dega is going to be an infrastructure platform, basically a network that provides the infrastructure to other networks that may not want to have to build out some of these things that are really time intensive and time consuming within crypto. So it states here, one API for all things, again, Web3 gaming and metaverse. And it states that through their one API, they'll simplify infrastructure and asset management via a platform that empowers bold companies to quickly deploy and scale Web3 games and metaverse applications. Now, before I jump into this actual graphic down there below, I want to state that the Cornucopias game has also officially partnered with Dega, and we can expect that the Cornucopias team will be using the Dega platform to read and provide information over to their metaverse when it comes to their NFTs. Now, as a simple example that has been mentioned plenty of times on the Cornucopias Kopi Cafes with Rob and Josh, they've talked about using the Dega network in order to store all of their information surrounding their racing vehicles, things such as the mileage, the wear and tear, etc. And again, that takes the load off of the Cornucopias game from having to manage all of that information on the Cardano network, where that could potentially become a lot more expensive. Keep in mind that everything dealing with Web3 metaverses will have to actually be stored on chain. And if you're doing that on a network, for example, like Ethereum, that can become very costly. We've already seen games like the Sandbox, where people are trying to interact with the platform, purchasing land, purchasing assets, and that in itself is already extremely expensive. So imagine having to save games or to save information, around the clock for hundreds of thousands of users. And if that's all being done directly on Cardano, that could potentially cause a lot of network congestion. So Dega is going to be a platform that basically does a lot of the heavy lifting. And what we have here is going to be a chart breaking down what we can expect from a platform like Dega. So you can imagine that you are this particular person here all the way on the left-hand side, and you're potentially looking to build a hardware or an application that leverages or interacts with Web3 or crypto. Through that, you can access some piece of hardware, which in this case, they've got an example with an Android phone, which is then tied to something like HTML5. And then in the back end, you're able to navigate or communicate with a whole host of Dega APIs. Now, these are going to be endpoints feeding you a lot of data specific to whatever you're looking for. So depending on the type of data that is stored or being fed by the API, you could basically reach out to it and then pull that information in seamlessly into your Web2 environment, again, which might be leveraging HTML, CSS, and then all of that is being hosted on some sort of hardware, which could be running Android or Apple iOS. So some of their services include token rewards, NFT information, power system information, rendering, which include experiences, gaming, and content network, as well as infrastructure information surrounding meta chains, search and discovery, key management, marketplaces, and then analysis information such as prediction and optimization information, and then finance information surrounding payments, tokens, and exchange markets. So for example, if you may be looking to integrate some DEX information, you could potentially do that using their finance API. Hopefully that made some sense to you guys there. Jumping over into the last tab here surrounding this partnership, it states that in addition, because they do have their ISPO, which is ongoing right now, in which they've already partnered up with Meld and Cornucopias, that any WMT holder or the World Mobile Token holders that participate in the Dega Cardano ISPO will receive a partnership bonus if they hold at least 180 of the WMT tokens in the same wallet that they're using to stake to the ISPO. They have similar guidelines for holders of the Cornucopias token as well as holders of the MEL token, which are able to receive discounts or bonuses, when holding particular number of tokens in their staked wallet to the Dega ISPO. Scrolling down, it talks a little bit about their vision for Web3, and it reads, "We build open source software tools and solutions for creatives which abstract all of the complexities of blockchain development, and by using Dega, any developer can evolve into Web3 or into a Web3 developer in just a couple of minutes." Again, I think that is going to be a huge need here moving forward, especially as we try to onboard more developers from Web2 directly into Web3. That is going to do it there for that particular update. Moving on to the next one, we're going to be touching on Butane, which I introduced here on the channel not too long ago as a synthetics platform building on Cardano. Now, before I jump into that, if you are enjoying this video so far, I would appreciate you if you could tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by the channel and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions for me surrounding anything that we've touched on so far for today's video or that we plan on touching on, then go ahead and make sure to leave a comment down below. Jumping into the news update surrounding Butane. So we now have their official tokenomics. However, we don't have an official website just yet. That is one thing that I'm currently waiting on to get more information surrounding the project, as well as their white paper. So right now we have a Twitter page and their tokenomics. So it states here 25 million max supply, and everything that they're sharing here is subject to change. Now let me maximize this. And what we have here is going to be a total supply of 55% of their tokens going towards their protocol treasury, 14% going towards the core team, 3% going towards community contributors, 4% going towards partners, 20% going towards their LBE or liquidity bootstrapping events, which basically allow for them to have liquidity on DEXs, which include MinSwap, Wing Riders, etc. And then they have 3% going towards their private offering, and then 1% going towards their airdrop. Some things that I've noted include the fact that we're not seeing any public sale. Traditionally, we would expect to see some sort of public sale, which gives the community the ability to kind of buy into the actual tokens, but we're not seeing any of that. However, we have seen a 3% private offering or a private sale. If we take a look at the very bottom, it states that the private sale has officially closed and raised 350,000 ADA already. So interesting thing to note there, no public sale, but their private sale has already concluded. Now, one thing that we don't have is the policy ID to actually verify the actual minting of the actual tokens on the network. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that as well. Next, we have another piece that kind of caught my eye, and that was that there's no marketing allocation or incentives or rewards distributed here as a part of their tokenomics. Now, that could actually be included within their protocol treasury. So I'll kind of see if I can dig around and find out more about that, but that is something that kind of caught my eye. So let me know what you guys think there. This is again just a brief update surrounding the Butane tokenomics and what we have so far surrounding their BTN token. That is going to do it for that particular update. And jumping into the very last one here for today's Cardano scoop, I want to touch on Dex Hunter. So I recently had Melon, who's going to be the CEO and founder of Jungle.io, which is officially rebranded over into Dex Hunter, and they are going to be a DEX aggregation platform building on Cardano. So if you're looking to get the best price when it comes to assets that you're purchasing on DEXs, which again include MinSwap, MusiSwap, Wing Riders, etc., then you can go ahead and use a platform like Dex Hunter in order to scan all of the DEXs and get the cheapest price. Now, one thing that they're introducing that is a little bit different than some of the other aggregators that we've already seen include transaction splitting. So you won't just get the best price on one single DEX, you'll actually get the best price across multiple DEXs, given the fact that if you do make a huge order because of price impact and the available liquidity on a single DEX, that may not necessarily be the best DEX after the actual trade is done being executed. So keep that in mind. Another thing to note is that I recently did have nmelon on the channel for a full interview breaking down what Dex Hunter is, the token utility, all of their offerings, and exactly what we can expect from them in the near future. So make sure to go ahead and check out that particular video if you guys want more information surrounding Dex Hunter. Now, what we have here in this particular graphic, and let me kind of blow it up a little bit, is going to be somebody looking to purchase 500 tokens of a particular asset. In this example, let's maybe just use asset X on Dex Hunter. And we can see that, given the fact that they want to purchase 500 tokens, 300 are being purchased using the Sunday Swap platform. And then an additional 200 are being purchased using the MinSwap DEX. And then both of those transactions are then returned back over to the user, which then has a fulfilled order. Again, breaking down the transaction splitting. Another thing that we have here with the actual Dex Hunter update is the fact that their brand new website has officially been released. When I had Nick on the platform, he did not have the website officially released just yet, but it is available now at dexhunter.io. Again, they're going to be a DEX aggregator with the best rates, real-time alerts, and a easy-to-use interface. Scrolling down, we can see some of their main features, and then we can also see some of their platform stats and the token utility. So their token is going to be called Hunt, and that's going to provide you with swap discounts, premium features, sniping discounts, and faster trades. Jumping over into this last piece here, this is going to be the last update for today's Cardano Scoop. I want to touch on the utility and their public sale. So the utility of the Hunt token includes discounts on DEX aggregator swaps, access to premium features, discounts on NFT sniping transactions, and rewards from auto sniping via their token buybacks. Scrolling down, we have their official tokenomics, and we can kind of compare this to Butane that I just reviewed, where here we have a pre-sale of 70%. And that's actually a pretty big amount, right? The majority of the tokens will be out in circulation after the pre-sale. Now, whether or not there's going to be some vesting taking place has yet to be identified, but that differs greatly from the pre-sale or private sale of Butane, when we had just about 3% compared to this 70%. Right below that, we have the team here with 10%, whereas with Butane, that was at 14%. Here we have an airdrop of 5%, whereas with Butane, that was 1%. And then we have liquidity, which here is 5%, whereas on Butane, that was 20%. And then trading incentives and marketing, where I don't think that we had either of those two categories there with the Butane token. Now, that is going to sum up with a total of 100 million tokens when it comes to Hunt. And if I scroll down here, we can see that they are going to have a pre-sale. So of the 70 million, which are going to be allocated for the pre-sale, there's going to be 45 million going towards the public, or 65%. And then we're going to get 25 million, or 35%, going towards holders. Now, if you're wondering what a holder is, let's see here. I believe that this is going to be anybody that's holding a Hunter Pass, a Melanaire NFT, or a Weno NFT. So interesting concept there. And if you hold any of those three NFTs, you will get a discount ranging from 3% all the way to 10% depending on the actual NFT. There's a little bit more information here surrounding their airdrop, their team token, their vesting schedule, and their final notes. So if you guys want more information surrounding Hunt and Dex Hunter in general, then make sure to go ahead and check out the link that I'm going to be leaving down in today's video description. that is going to bring me to the end for today's video. If you made it here and you found anything to be helpful along the way, I would appreciate you if you could tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by the channel and you appreciate Cardano content like this and you want more of it, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions for me surrounding any of the topics that we touched on for today's video, then as always, make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. That said, I will see you guys in the next video.